Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Studio 78 podcast. I am your host, Nache from NacheSnow.com. Welcome, my friends, to another episode. I have Monique Malcolm on, and of course, to get to the show notes of this page, for this page, please go over to NacheSnow.com/164. I have had Monique on before in episode 85, 100, 123, and 145. So she's almost like Kay, like another one of my co-hosts. I love chatting with her. The first time I had her on, we talked about not letting fear have all the fun. The second time was in 2020, and we talked about goals, pricing, vision board, and accountability at the top of the year. Then in 21, I had her back on again, and we talked about setting goals, journals, email funnels. And then the last time I had her on, which was episode 145, we talked about vision boards, and you guys love that episode. And then also, again, tips for embracing fear. So you can see that fear and embracing fear and not letting fear have all the fun. It's always been a theme that Monique has had since coming onto the podcast, since I've known her. So when I found out that she wrote the book, Don't Let Fear Have All the Fun, I was like so happy for her, so excited. Those that follow me on Instagram, you'll see that I went to her book launch because it happened to be in my area on the East Coast of the US. And so I am just really excited for her and really excited for you too, because this is a great book that we're going to get to in the episode and really talk to you about what are some tips in order to push past fear, grow from fear, some exercises you could do, which are located in this book. I mean, all the things. So anywho, have a listen to this episode, but please go back and listen to the other episodes too. I have them all linked within the show notes of this episode, which again is NacheSnow.com/164. So before we jump into the conversation with Monique, a few housekeeping things. Actually, I recently wrote an article, and the title of that article is From Dreams to Reality, the Systematic Approach to Achieve Your Goals and Living a Purpose-Driven Life. I'm really proud of this article. It is super long, but it goes into like how you create essentially a personal development plan and all the little elements that go into it, from creating a mission, intention, creating a goal, creating a plan, a routine, affirmation, habit, and a system to go along with that. I also talk a little bit about manifestation and visualization. And I'm working right now on a Notion template that I may pair with a video in order to go with this development plan to help you guys figure out how to achieve all of these amazing goals in your life. If it's personal, making space for the time for the things you love, or if it's business or career wise, where you're trying to figure out like how to grow, make money from your side hustle, whatever it is, right? Get more money. I want you guys to know that it is achievable, and literally not that much needs to go into a plan. It just needs to have like really smart goals that you always hear about. You have to really believe in yourself and just have like at least a good outline that you could use in order to get where you need to be. So stay tuned for that, but check that at least article out to get you started at NacheSnow.com/plan. And if you love this episode, please head on over to Apple Podcasts and rate me 5 stars. If you're on YouTube looking at this, please give the video a thumbs up. Wherever you're listening, please subscribe, my friends. It really helps the podcast. And of course, sharing is caring. If you think this episode will help someone, please do an Instagram story or put it on TikTok or Facebook. And if you can, tag me. I'd really appreciate it. And it makes me feel good because then I know that the messages that my guests are sharing are actually helping people and they're continuing to spread even further. So anywho, enough talking from me. Let's talk to Monique Malcolm about how and why she created the book, Don't Let Fear Have All the Fun. And also, let's talk about some real tips on pushing past fear and really making sure that you have what you need in order to achieve what you want to achieve without second guessing yourself. Okay, let's get to it. All right. Hello, Monique. Welcome back to the podcast.
Hello. It's so good to be back.
I've already done this intro and I've told them how you've been on the podcast before, episode 85, episode 100, episode 123, and episode 145. So you guys know that I love talking to Monique.
I know. It's such a good time. I'm so excited to be back.
And so today, so folks, seriously, if you're like, who is Monique? I'm going to have like all the old episodes linked in the show notes so you can find out all about like how she got started and how she got here. But I'm just going to have Monique for this episode just give you just a snippet about who she is before we jump into her book. So, Monique, please tell the people who you are.
Okay, so my name is Monique Malcolm. I am a Sagittarius, the oldest of 8 children. I'm just kidding. That's probably not what you wanted to know, but seriously, really quickly, I do a lot of things and I have done a lot of things. And if you listen to the last episode, you will realize that I think at this point in my life, the best way to describe myself is multi-passionate. I love to tell stories and create things. Those are the two things that drive a lot of my work. And at this phase of my evolution into this creator who is doing all of these things, I am trying to help people overcome their fears, go after more of their goals, and live the life that they want without letting fear steal all of that glorious fun away from them.
Yes. And so for the folks that are looking at, let me see, I can't see myself to make sure that they can see the book.
It's the book. It's so cute. Oh, wait, I feel like I should share mine too. All right, I got the hard copy.
Yes, look at that. Okay, so Monique, so you got this book, Don't Let Fear Have All the Fun. And for those in audio world, it says, and other advice for making bold moves, even if you're afraid. And so what made you decide to write this book?
Okay, so the long, short story is I wrote a fear guide in 2018. This was just supposed to be a really simple, like, PDF that I wanted to give as an opt-in on my website. And I wrote it. It was about like a 5,000 word manifesto about what I have coined the chorus of fear, which is that voice that we hear in the back of our minds and how it shows up. Basically, singing all of our excuses, justifications, reasons. I call those your greatest hits, kind of like Beyonce, Rihanna has this greatest hits list of like songs they sing all the time. Well, the Chorus of Fear has something similar, and it is specific to you. And after I wrote that, I saw it in my mind in like book form. And I was like, okay, I'm going to format this into a tiny book. And I named it The Fear Guide. I sent it off to Amazon, and within a week, I had it printed. And I had a speaking engagement coming up that I was going to be doing about like a month and a half from when I had written this Fear Guide. I sent it to the person who was putting that engagement on, and I was like, hey, I wrote this thing. Take a look at it, let me know what you think. And she came back and she was like, oh, scrap the thing that you were doing. I was going to teach this craft workshop on like designing t-shirts. She was like, scrap that. I'm going to fit you into the schedule. I want you to talk on this. And so I did this talk, and this is the only time I've done a talk where people were crying. Like, it was very interactive. I had people like sharing their own fears and things of that nature. And there was a point where I looked out and like several women had like tears on their face. They were crying. And at the end, I just felt like I wanted to leave them with something. I wanted to say like a mantra or something like really powerful that they could come back to. And I just blurted out, don't let fear have all the fun. And someone gasped, like a woman in the front row. She gasped when I said it. And I was like, oh, that's a good one. I had never said it before. It's not even something I had thought about. I scribbled it down in the margins of my notes, and I knew that I wanted to take that fear guide and expand it into a full book. And so that is the backstory for how Don't Let Fear Have All the Fun came about.
Well, it's so interesting, just to take a pause here, because talking about pushing past fear, you went there to do one talk and was asked to do another one on the fly.
Yeah, like about a month out. Exactly. I had like sourced all the materials for the t-shirts. We were going to do like all these things. I had like found that I had all the stuff ready. I was prepared to teach the craft workshop.
But I think that is a good example of, like, even if there was a little part of you that was like, what? I've never really done a talk on this. Should I be talking on this? It's like you decided to push past the fear and then give the fear talk. So I think there's like some irony in there, and I love it.
Yeah, I think if I had to say something to people about like these random paths that it seems that I have been on, and trust me, when you listen to the past episode, you're gonna be like, she's done so many things. Like it's always a new thing. I'm really big on following energy.
Mm,
And so I follow creative ideas. I follow that energy until like energetically I'm done with them. And then when I'm
mm,
done, I'm done. But usually in that process of like trying to find the end of this energy, I'm creating these bodies of work. And somehow, some way, they're all kind of a thread, like they're linked to each other. And it's
mm,
not always easy for me to see them in process in that way. I've spent a lot of time trying to figure out like how does all my work come together into one concise piece of work? And I think it's just now that I'm starting to see that I've been talking about the chorus of fear and using that language. I found an email all the way back in like 2016.
mm,
So
mm.
even though I wrote about it in 2018 in this fear guide, I've used that language before. So it's all this energy that just is really kind of coming together and like finally into one cohesive thing. So even though I didn't feel, and I still don't feel like I am the fear expert,
Yeah.
it's still something that I very much am excited about talking. I'm excited to talk with people about just because I feel so strongly about it. And it really does feel like it's core to my work.
Okay, so you do this talk. So 2018, right? We're 5 years later.
Mhm.
So what led to the book?
So I did the talk, and like I said, it got such great feedback. The attendees of that talk, they just came back and said all of this really positive things about it, and I knew that I wanted to do it again. So I
Mm,
put out a feeler on my Facebook asking people like if they had a space where I could do a talk and bring my Fear Guide book. And someone that I know has a co-working space, and they offered it to me. It's in Miami. So I did the talk again at that co-working space. Again, people really loved it. I was able to incorporate it in another talk that I did locally in my hometown. So I'd done these talks, and every time people really, really loved it. But I knew from that first talk I wanted to speak on this more. I wanted to take this idea of the chorus of fear, its greatest hits, and some of this other language that I was creating about fear, and I
mm,
wanted to share with more people and like expand it into something more. I didn't know how at the time, but I knew it was going to be a book. I didn't feel ready to write that book, but I also knew the title was going to be called Don't Let Fear Have All the Fun. Like that, from writing that PDF to doing that talk, like this was like less than a 2 months time frame. All of these little dominoes stacked up and that moment,
mm-hmm.
they just weren't ready to be knocked over and like fall into motion. But I knew by the end of 2018 I wanted to write a book called Don't Let Fear Have All the Fun. I didn't know when, and I had even loosely in my mind made plans to write it in like the next year, 2019 or maybe 2020. But it was just one of those things where I just never sat down and made the time to write the book. And
Mm-hmm.
then I stumbled upon an opportunity to work with somebody to write the book, and all of the stars aligned. And so I just went for it and decided I'm going to write the book. I'm going to make the time. And, here we are 5 years later. It took 5 years. So, like, don't ever look at something and be like, oh, well, they just did this overnight. This was like an idea that was 5 years in the work. But I mean, here we are on the other side of it. I finished the book, it's out into the world. And I feel like right now, for me, energetically, and just where we are in the world and with creators and certain things that are happening, it's a good time for this message.
Mm. And so before we dig into that message, just want to kind of dig into just a couple of things for people who might be looking to like one day have a book and one day get speaking engagements on like whatever their specific topic is. So you said after that kind of initial fear, talk on fear, so you reached out to other people and was like, hey, I have this talk. I want, right? I want
Hmm.
to be able to like speak on fear. Do you have a platform? And so I think sometimes people are afraid to do that, right? Because a lot of people would like maybe would have done that talk and would hope that maybe someone would come to them or would have seen them during that talk, and if no one did, then it wasn't like meant to be, but you actually took action. And
Yeah.
so can you just talk a little bit about like the importance of that, because I think that kind of relates to fear too, because sometimes we don't take action because of the fear of rejection.
Hmm. And fear of rejection is huge. It's such a huge blocker. It's definitely one of the things that the chorus of fear likes to sing to us. But I think in that moment, I knew that I was onto something. And I
Mm,
had even talked with like a woman who was at that talk, and at the time she was kind of like a mentor to me, who was like, okay, so I think that you need to package this up into a full talk and do more with it. So there was that encouragement right there, right off the bat. I did not like the thing that happened with the speaking engagement in Miami. I did not anticipate that happening, but I think this is one of those times where you have to think about opportunity. And you
mm,
can only get opportunity if you tell somebody that you're seeking an opportunity.
mm-hmm,
You can't walk through a door. A door is not always just going to open to you. Sometimes you have to knock on that door, and then if the door opens, you have to choose to walk into it. So it I'm not going to say, because I say this over and over in the book, I'm not fearless. I am not a fearless person. You'll probably read some of those stories and be like, she lying. She was saying like she was swimming in the ocean with jellyfish and she was doing all these things. I do all of these things very afraid. Like, listen, listen. When I was in high school, I took a world religions class and I learned about like all of these major religions in the world. And so in those moments where I'm afraid, I'm like, dear God, dear Jesus, dear baby Jesus, like like who do I need to call on to help me get through this experience? Because I'm still afraid of doing these things. I've just kind of chosen to I don't want to be overlooked. Like that's my thing. Like I cannot stand the idea of having an idea that I feel so strongly about and that people have really resonated with and it just lives with me.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, how many times have we hopped on Instagram or any of these platforms and we've seen somebody get an opportunity that you know you could have nailed?
Mm-hmm.
And like in those
Mm-hmm.
moments, I'm going to be honest, in those moments, I feel a little hateful. And I have to check myself. I really have to check myself and like walk back from that and be like, no, what is for you is not going to pass you by. But at the same time, I have to like sit with like, where is that coming from? And it's
Mm-hmm.
coming from a place of like, I feel like I could have done something like that, or not that I wanted that exact opportunity, but like I could use an opportunity like that and I could go so far with it. But you
Mm-hmm.
can't have those opportunities if you are afraid to open your mouth and say, "Hey, I have a thing,"
Mm-hmm.
and you can use it. I told somebody recently, I just put those things out there. I've been trying to be more conscious of that and saying, like, I have this goal for my book. I have this goal for this thing that I want to do. I have this idea. And I just put it out there. I don't
Mm-hmm.
have attachment to it. I don't have attachment to the outcome of it. I just like to think that, like, I'm voicing to the universe out loud, like, this is what I need. This is what I want. And if somebody raises their hand and says, hey, I have that thing, I can get that for you or I can help you get that. I want to give
Mm-hmm.
that person the opportunity to show up and say, I can do this. If I don't say anything, nobody gets the opportunity. I don't get the opportunity. You don't get the opportunity to help. Like, it's just, it's a black hole of nothingness. that's happening.
No, that's true. I mean, you do. I am a big believer in that. It's like you have to put out in the world what you want, and you can't be afraid to do it, because you think somebody will think it's silly, or you're afraid of rejection, or whatever the story is that you've told yourself in your head, right?
Hmm.
It's like you really just have to do it because that is what will provide you opportunities. And also, like, I feel like I am a true believer. Like, if you speak something, it will be, right? Like, you speak
Hmm.
it into existence. And so I 100% agree.
Don't you
And
kind of think, like, to a certain degree, by you being afraid of being rejected for this idea, like sharing with somebody, aren't you in fact rejecting the idea?
right, you're like rejecting yourself.
You are rejecting yourself. You're rejecting the idea. So you're not even giving somebody the opportunity to help you make that thing a reality. And I think that feels worse.
So, Monique, all right, so you mentioned that you met someone and that was kind of like okay, I think I'm ready to write this book. So, was it like a book publisher? Who did you meet where you're like, okay, I think I'm ready to actually write this book and figure out how I'm going to get it published?
There is a woman that I've followed online for a very long time. Her name is Alexandra Franzen. She is an author. She's an online business person. She's done writing. Like, she's written for so many different businesses that I admire, like done copywriting and things for them. And I follow her for years, and I just have loved her newsletters. They're always, I think, what you need in that moment. It's always practical. It's always simple advice. Like, her sales emails don't feel pushy and salesy. She's just a very pleasant person.
Mm,
And started doing this. She opened up a book production company with her business partner and was put out a call for people who wanted to write a book in a year. And she was like, at the end of this year, you will have a finished book. And it included pretty much everything that I needed. So I took that as a sign that I should do it. Like I said, the stars aligned. So it was somebody who I really admired and wanted to work with. My money situation was right to be able to take on that investment and it not be a strain. And then even just personally, like, my household finances had like stabilized and we were able to pay off a lot of debt. So it was okay for me to take that time off to write the book. So it really was just a combination of here's the perfect situation to create a book. And so I just decided I'm going to take the opportunity. I'm going to chase it. I did consider trying to shop the book to a traditional publisher and going that
mm,
route, but I did not do that only because the time that it takes between like when you get a book deal and when a book comes out, it's a really long time. Sometimes
mm,
it's like 3 years. It can be a really long time, just like finding an agent, getting a deal, the time that it takes them to actually produce the book. And I did not feel like I wanted to sit on this idea for 2 more years or 3 more years potentially when I was already sitting on this idea at that time. Let's see, I finished the book. It had been like 4 years already, or maybe even three, and I didn't want to wait that much longer. So I just kind of decided, you know what, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna run out here and I'm gonna see what this book is gonna do.
hey, go for it. So, I mean, my goodness, I could go all, into like the process of that. But I think what would really be helpful for people is the contents of the book. Because I think what is like really unique about this book is not only are there a lot of stories in it, but there are exercises in it and there are actionable items in it, which I love because I feel like sometimes you'll get something or you'll read something and you're like, okay, I'm kind of like motivated, but what should I do? Right? And so, can you talk a little bit about why you decided to go that route and maybe share like some of the key takeaways that you mentioned in the book that can help people in the area of fear?
From the moment that I decided I was going to do this book and like I signed up to work with this company, I was very clear about certain things that had to happen. I knew that there needed to be exercises in the book because I mean, I come from a teaching background. I've been a creator, an online entrepreneur for years. So
Mm-hmm.
I am always big on like actionable takeaways, like having things that people actually can do, how do we synthesize what you learned into something that you can put to work and put to use now? So that was something that I kept at the forefront of my mind before I even started writing the book. And as I started putting together the outline, I made sure every chapter had like an exercise or two. I made sure every chapter had key takeaways and just things that people would come back to over and over again because I consider this to be like a workbook. So it's a book, you're going to
Mm-hmm.
work on it, and it's something that I think I want people to come back to because you might read this book cover to cover and some of it is going to settle and sit with you, but you may find that you're going to come back to this book again and you're going to find something that you didn't even pay attention to the first time or you didn't really like take in as much as you should. So those were like my intentions going into the book writing process. And I think it turned out amazingly well. And for me, I think the main takeaway that I want everybody to have when they read the book is that you don't have to be fearless to live the life that you want to live. I
Mm-hmm.
say multiple times, I'm not a fearless person. And I repeat this throughout the book. I don't want you to forget because this is the case. I'm not fearless, but I don't think that you need to be fearless to live a fulfilling, a fun, a vibrant, a big life. That's not a prerequisite for that. And that really is the biggest takeaway, like the lesson of the book. There is no prerequisite that says that you have to be fearless before you start living the life that you want to live. You can start living that way right now, today. You can be the scariest person ever, but you just have to commit to continuing to try to silence the voice of the chorus of fear and taking the next tiny step.
And there's like a few things that I wanted to just kind of like dive into. And one of them was like how to take action when you don't know how or where to start. So can I mean, we've
Oh,
all been there, right?
hmm.
Is so can you talk a little bit about that?
So I don't know if this made it through the editing process, if we edited this out or not. But I talk about how I don't like that question when people ask me like I don't where they say like I don't know where to start. How do you start when you don't know where to start? That question always throws me for a loop because I don't have a tidy, sexy answer for you. I just don't. And nobody can because there are just some things, or honestly, there's most things you just have to go through the process to get more information. Like trying to make a decision about that from this space right now where like you're sitting, you're thinking about it logically, you're journaling about it, like that's not always enough to give you the information you need to be able to make that decision. Clarity really is in following through and taking the action. So the advice that I give for that is you have to find your step one.
Mm,
That's what it comes down to. For you to be able to start when you don't know where or how to start, you have to find step one. And that means starting with what you have, starting with where you're at, and considering, what resources do you have available? What information do you already have for this? Figuring out what is the simplest first step. And I give the example of like, if you know that you want to do a career change at work, step one is not going and giving your resignation. That's not step one. Trust me, that is not it. Don't do that. Step one, it might be speaking with a career coach to figure out like what are your career options? What path are you currently on? Are there gaps that you need to fill? Uh,
mhm.
it could be talking with a recruiter and asking some questions about a potential position that you want to go into. It may be that you need a certification for something, so maybe you need a little bit more education. That doesn't mean go
Mhm.
all the way back to school. That might not be necessary, but you need to figure out what step one is. And when you find out what step one is, you take step one, and step one, you'll know that you got step one right because it'll give you a clear path to step two. So if
Mhm.
you are thinking about a career change, you talk to a career coach, you should be able to see like what is the next step you need to take from there. It should be kind of obvious or the path should be more lit up for you to be able to see like this is where we take the next step. But
Mhm. Mhm.
just sitting here and saying like, okay, here's the thing that I'm so stressed about trying to figure out and I don't know where to start. And you just try to like logic your way through it. That's not always going to give you the best answer. You really do have to take action on it some way, somehow.
Somehow, I mean, it all comes back to action, people. And action, it doesn't have to be a big action. It can be little
Nope.
tiny actions, little tiny, right?
Yep. Take tiny action.
So another thing that I wanted to highlight that you have in the book that I think is important is you have this sign your celebration commitment contract.
Yes. Yes,
So
I
can
do.
you talk about that a little bit?
Let's be honest. Raise your hand if you are a poor celebrator of yourself. Guilty,
Right?
guilty as charged.
We
We
win, right? And go to the next.
And it's when you do that, you really do lose sight of how much progress you're making, how far you have come. And I don't say this to like toot my own horn, but my best friend is so good on calling me out for not really sitting with the things that I do and accomplish because
Hmm.
I'm a doer. I'm an overachiever. So I will create something. I will write a whole book, put it up for sale, and then go on to the next. It's done. The challenge of that book, it was done. Over it, right? I did. I said I was going to write a book. I wrote the book. I'm over it. But you can't do that because writing a book, that's not just something that people can just do. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of work. And so you have to learn to sit with what you're doing and really celebrate yourself for the progress that you made. And not just celebrating yourself at the end of that progress, celebrating yourself throughout the entire journey because all of these things are a journey. It's not just a one and done thing. So I put that celebration contract in there because I really wanted to highlight the fact that we need to be celebrating ourselves a lot more. We need to commit to celebrating ourselves. And if we say we're going to give ourselves treats or incentives for doing certain things, we need to give ourselves those rewards without guilt, without feeling like
Yes.
bad about it. So if you say, if I go to the gym 10 times this month. If you do it and you say you were going to get your nails done, you got to go get your nails done. You can't get to the 10th session and be like, oh, well, I'm not going to get my nails done this month. I'll do it next month or I'll do it next time. No, you have to follow through on the commitments that you make to yourself. That builds trust in yourself. That builds trust in like your word and what you say you're going to do. And also, that's motivating. Those are the kind of things that help you feel inspired to keep getting up and going to that gym or keep, submitting the resume or keep showing up at the pool and trying to learn how to swim. Like those incentives are what you hold on to when you don't really feel like doing it. So if you don't celebrate yourself and you don't reward yourself the way that you say you're going to, you lose trust in what you're saying to yourself.
I think that is so important because we don't celebrate our wins enough. I feel like we do something, everybody's like, oh my God, that's so amazing. And then we're just like on to the next thing.
Hmm.
We don't take the time to just treat ourselves to whatever that treat is, right? Everybody has their own thing. And I'm glad that you highlighted that in the book because I feel like all of us are guilty of that, right? Like we just don't do enough of it.
We don't. We don't. And, I go through a list of reasons. And I think the big thing that I want for people to take from that chapter, because I did a whole chapter on like celebrating the entire journey. It's this
Mm-hmm.
idea of we don't have enough time. And we think that a celebration has to be a big fancy thing. So because you did this, you have to have like an event and people have to be involved and it's got to cost money and it's got to be a production. You got to record it for Instagram. You got to put it on TikTok. You got to tweet about it. And it doesn't have to be a production. It can be something as simple as you post in the group chat, y'all clap. I just finished chapter one. And then let everybody
Yeah.
like celebrate with you for a second. It could be you putting on your favorite song and now you are dancing and just like being in your body for that moment and experiencing the joy of, I made progress on this thing. I did this thing that I set out to do. We have to stop thinking that a celebration only can be this certain thing and it's only valid if we spend this amount of money or we tell these people or we do this. It doesn't have to be any of that. It can just be
Mm-hmm.
you saying, you know what? I did it. I am going to treat myself to 30 minutes of Netflix. I'm going to make a hot cocoa and I'm going to put extra marshmallows in it. And I'm going to sit on the
Boom.
couch and I'm going to read a few pages of like this saucy romance that I am, reading at the moment. Like it can be so many things, but It's really just learning to pause and be in that moment of, I did this thing and I feel good about it. And I want to celebrate myself for following through on the thing that I said I was going to do.
Yeah. And I feel like that leads into the next thing that I wanted to highlight from the book is I love me a good exercise. And you have a who you gonna call exercise. And it's about the cheer squad, right? I mean, because sometimes it's the people around you that remind you to take a breath, right? And they're the ones that are sending you the emojis saying, "Oh my God, good job." They're the ones that are cheering you on. And so, can you kind of talk a little bit about what a cheer squad means to you and what that looks like?
I tell people all the time, I don't apologize for this. My greatest key to success is having an amazing support system. And I call that your cheer squad. So these are the people in your life who are cheering you on for whatever it is you're doing. And you can have multiple different people. You can have people from your family, you can have friends, you can have coworkers, you can have mentors. Like there's not a one size fits all. So you kind of have to decide for yourself what that looks like and how many people you want in it. But these are the people who are going to show up for you in the good times, in the bad times, in the in between times, because you need support not just when things are going terribly. You need support when things are going well. You need support when things are going just neutral.
Mm.
So your cheer squad are those people in your life who you know you can call to celebrate you, to vent about something that's happened, to get advice, to help you take your life, your career, whatever it is that you're trying to do to the next level. And I think that people need to be more intentional about creating that. We
Mm-hmm.
think that our support system only has to be family. It mainly has to consist of like our intimate partners and all of that stuff, but that's not true. I have
Mm-hmm.
an amazing support system, and it consists of a variety of people. It consists of family. It consists of friends. It consists of people like Nache, who Nache and I have only met in person 2 times, right?
I know,
And
right?
like, but when we connect, we can talk. We will talk. Like we have to schedule time to talk because we will just talk for that long. So it's like when we do schedule time to talk, it was like, all right, I got 2 hours and here we go. And it's like 2 hours of nonstop. And then it's like, all right, let's do this again sometime soon. And then we do it again. And it's like unload. But you have to have those kind of people in your life who make you feel seen and really show up for you during times where things are happening because you're always
Mm-hmm.
like you need those people to help you transition through the different stages in life. It's kind of like new parents. New parents can tend to cling to other new parents. Why? Because they're going through similar situations. They're going
Mm-hmm.
through similar changes. When you're in college, it's like your college friends that you meet. You form this bond over those college years. Why? Because you guys were going through a similar experience at the same time. You're transitioning from being kids to young adults together. And so like you form this bond. And so the same thing tends to happen with cheer squads is and I think of like I use the analogy of an actual cheerleading team. I don't know if you've ever watched like a cheer competition, but everybody has a role in a cheer
Mm-hmm.
competition. You have flyers, so those are the people who are on the top of the stack who are being tossed in the air. You have spotters. Those are the people who are making sure the people who have been tossed in the air come down safely. You have bases. Those are the people who are on the bottom supporting and holding up the flyer and making sure that they're doing their tricks safely. So if you were to think about yourself in a cheer competition on a team, you'd probably be the flyer. You're the person at the top of the pyramid that's being tossed up and has to come back down. You need people to help you get back down safely. You need people to
Mm-hmm.
help you get up safely. And so that's really where a cheer squad comes into importance when you are trying to do anything in life. You need people who are going to help you get up safely when you need to get up, and you need people to help you get back down safely and like land on solid ground and finish. So, I think that my personal cheer squad is the best. but I've been very intentional about cultivating those relationships over the years.
Like you might have a
Hmm.
friend that you call and you know that they are going to give you like a straight shooting, candid,
Hmm.
response to whatever you bring up. Or maybe if you just really need support, you know that person in your squad, right? That is going to be the emotional support person that you need in order to like make you feel better and just kind of give you like almost that virtual hug maybe that you need at the moment. And so I think it's important for people to remember like everybody in your squad is different. It's like you said, like everybody has like kind of like a different role too, and you want that because you need different things. But I guess the running theme through all of the people in the squad is they're all there for you regardless. They
Hmm.
want the best for you, right?
Exactly. And even though they all have distinct roles, just like a team, they can fill in where necessary when they
Right.
need to.
I think it was like towards the end of the book. I believe you had talked about failure. Is that
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And so, talk a little bit about failure because people are afraid to fail, but failure is good. It's like how we grow. But people are like, no, I don't want to fail because I'll look silly and I'll look like I don't know what I'm doing. And people will think that I'm nothing. And there's this narrative that people also have about failure. So, curious, can you just give us like your take on like failure and what that means and how to get past it?
Whenever someone asks me like what I think about failure, the question I always pose to them is, if you are not failing, how are you growing? Because you cannot have growth without failure. Literally, like there you can't. And I gave the example in my book about these little spiders. I call them crab spiders. They're big spiders that are in the trees, like the oak trees around here. And they make these massive webs. For them to be like a small spider, it's like a huge web, like from tree to tree, from the ground to the tree. And they're making these big, huge webs. And I remember going on walks with my husband and him, and I'm just like amazed by these spiders. And I'm like, oh my gosh, look how big this web is. Cause like the sunlight is catching on the webs. And he would say, you got to build a big web to catch what you want. And I thought that was so profound. And as I sat with that idea of like, you have to build a big web to get what you want, I just thought about how smart and genius the spider is. As much as like we want to shoo them out of our houses, they build these webs knowing that the webs are going to get destroyed. Somebody's going to walk through it. Maybe a
Somebody's
fly is
gonna.
going to like get stuck in it and like damage a piece. But that does not stop the spider from getting up and building a new web tomorrow, because guess what? You
That's
cannot catch
true.
what you want without building that web. And you're only going to catch that building that web over and over again and giving your best effort, even if you fail to catch the fly today. You fail to catch a fly today. Does that just mean that you don't build any more webs? You don't try again tomorrow? No. You get back up, you assess the damage. If there's damage, you repair it. If there's no damage, you cross your fingers. Oh gosh, thank you, and like you try again. But you won't catch what you want if you're going to be so afraid of failing. And spiders don't think about that. The spiders are just driven by, I need to catch a fly. I need to catch the wasp. I need to catch something. So they just get up and they build their webs all over again. The caveat that I tell people is like the spider doesn't build a half-ass web. Like after the web is destroyed, it doesn't just throw up any old kind of web again and be like, well, I put it back up. It's fine. Y'all, do what you want to do with it, fly. No, they go and they give it a good effort all over again. So that's the real thing about failure. You have to stop thinking about failure as the end point. Failure is an event, full stop, period. But that doesn't mean that you cannot create a new event. Like you have to keep going. You have to build another web, and you have to give just as much effort this next go around, maybe even more than you
Yeah.
did the first time. You can't just quit it and be like, oh, well, it didn't work. That's proof it's not going to work. I can't do it anymore. Like, no, that's not how it works.
Okay, so as we wrap up here, I think that one of the last things I just wanted to chat about. I remember a long time ago reading like the book Big Magic, and she said something to the effect of like A person without fear is a psychopath.
True.
Right? Like we all need a healthy amount of fear. What advice do you have for people out there that might have a little bit more fear than they should, and it is paralyzing them when it comes to taking action?
So you have to decide for yourself what feels worse. Does it feel worse to try and do this thing and potentially fail, not have it go the way that you want? Or does it feel worse to live with regret and to feel like I coulda, shoulda, woulda did this thing, but you didn't? You have to make it a choice. You have to
Mhm.
decide which level of discomfort you want because both of them are uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable to try and know that you could fail, but it's also uncomfortable to sit here and do nothing and know that you really, really want to do this thing. And fear has a cost. And I don't think that we think about it from that perspective, but there is a cost that you take on when you don't go after the things that you want in your life. So I'm not talking about like dangerous things, going to wrestle alligators. I'm talking about like our irrational fears, the things that are in our minds that are stopping us from going after what we want. There's a cost and you pay a toll. It could be financial, it can be physical, it can be emotional. And in some cases it can be spiritual. I don't go into that in my book, but you pay a toll for not doing the things that you want. So you have to decide, do you want to try and know that it might not work out the way that you want, but at least you tried. So you have that and you can try again. Nobody's stopping you from
Mhm.
trying again. Or do you just want to sit here and stay the same? You have to make a decision. Are you willing to take on that cost, an emotional toll, a physical toll, a financial toll for not doing the things that you want? Or do you just want to go ahead and try it and see what happens?
I just love that. And people, you should pick this book up. I'm going to ask Monique to tell us where it's available in a second. But before I do, like when you look back at your life, is there like one example that you would want to share of like where fear almost took something away from you? If you wouldn't have been able to push past fear, you might have missed out potentially on an amazing opportunity.
I
And
mean,
I'm getting her cold here, people. I didn't prep her for this. This just kind of popped in my head.
there's so many times. But you know what? I have one that's really simple. When I was in the ninth grade, I got my first scholarship for college in ninth grade. So I talk about this in the book. Like,
Oh, yeah.
I worked hard in high school to be able to afford to go to college because I knew my parents couldn't afford it. So I got my first scholarship when I was in the ninth grade. Here's the thing. I had heard about it on the morning announcement for a couple of days, and I sat on it, and the day before the application was due, I decided I'm gonna try. And I had to get a bunch of stuff together in one day. I had to get recommendations from teachers, I had to get like personal recommendations from friends, I had to submit transcripts. So I really had to hustle to put all of these things together. Like I said, it was like this little obscure thing that they said on the morning announcements. And I applied and I got the scholarship. And so I knew from ninth grade I was going to be able to afford to go to college because I had gotten my first scholarship and it would pay for 2 years of community college, 2 years of state school, which was perfect because that was in alignment with what I was trying to do. But that scholarship program opened up so many opportunities for me. Through that scholarship program, I met my first mentor. Her name was Sharon. She worked at Universal Studios, which my high school exists literally behind Universal Studios. She helped me get my first job. I started working in this restaurant in Jurassic Park because she worked in food services. And so I got my first job. The woman who ran the program at the time, she provided so many opportunities. One really important one was when I was a senior in high school, she helped facilitate me being able to go full time to the community college to take my classes so that I could get more college credit. And I graduated with 25 college credits out of high school. So that one decision to apply for this scholarship that I knew nothing about, but I
Hmm.
just decided I'm going to try and go for it. I got a job opportunity. I got, you know, I got the scholarship. I got more
Mm-hmm.
college credit. I got to have all of these amazing experiences with that program. And that was just because I just decided in that moment I was going to do it and go for it.
So, people, you know, as the mean one here, what I'm going to tell you is I know for some of you guys out there, there's something that you're debating about doing and you're not sure if you should do it, if you should send that email, if you should apply for whatever, if you should make that phone call, if you should raise your prices, if you should, whatever it is, whatever it is. So we're telling you right now, we want you to do that. That one thing.
Do it. Do
Just
it.
do
Don't
it.
let fear have all the fun.
Just do it. Just do it. Don't think about it. Just do it. Because, man, what if it works out? Right?
What if it works out? I mean, you
What if
can't
it
even
does?
begin to think about all of the threads, like all the opportunities and doors that it will open or it could open for you.
Okay. So, Monique, tell people where they can buy the book. And for the record, people, I have the digital version and the hard copy. Please let people know, yes, where they can pick up both.
All right. So the book is available online pretty much through all online book retailers. So, all the big ones. My preference is that you get it through my website, taketinyAction.com. If you want, I can sign it for you. Some people are really into that. I didn't know that was a thing, but it's been a thing. It's kind of cool. I can sign it for you, but also Amazon's got billions of dollars. I don't got Amazon money. So if you get it through my site, it's just better for me overall. But it's not bad if you get it through Amazon either. It's a better option for people who are overseas because, you can get through Prime and it still helps you rank in Amazon. So you can find it there. Bookshop.org, like a local bookstore, they can order it for you. So those are some places you can find it. I don't know if I said my website is taketinyAction.com, but I'm throwing it out there. It's really easy to say, really easy to spell. Exactly how it sounds is how you spell it. No fancy spelling here. So that is where you can find the book. If you want to know more about me and get into my world, you can find that information in my newsletter, taketinyAction.com/newsletter is where you can find that information. And I'm on the interwebs at Take Tiny Action and Monique Malcolm. If you want to hang out with me online and get into those shenanigans, you can do that too.
And, I'm just going to put this out here, people she doesn't know, I'm going to put her on the spot for this either. I just feel like you should do an audio version of the book. I'm just going to put it out there.
It's loosely in my mind about something that I want to do. I just have not done what I need to do for that. But I mean, I got this good podcast mic
I
now. So like
mean,
here goes, this is my voice. So it's coming. It's coming.
okay.
Everything in time.
Just putting it out there, putting it out in the universe. Well, Monique, as always, it's amazing to have you on the podcast. And I really think that this is going to help people really think about how they can conquer fear and kind of use fear really in order to get what they want, because it is good, I think, to have a healthy amount of fear. Fear is good. It's just you can't let, like you said, fear have all the fun, right? This book, you guys, is excellent. It's an easy, quick read. And like I said, it has lots of exercises in there. And so it really forces you to really think through what some of your fears are and how you can create a squad and all the things. And so take the time to get it. I've seen some of you guys who follow me have already gotten it, which is pretty cool. So, yeah, it's pretty amazing. Monique, thanks again for coming on.
Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure.
All right. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed that episode. I love, love, love having Monique on. It's so amazing. I probably talked to her a couple of hours before we even started recording, which is why by the time we started recording, it was dark in Florida and in DC where I am. But anywho, be sure to pick up her book, Don't Let Fear Have All the fun. It is a great read. I think you guys will get a lot out of it. I have it linked in the show notes along with any other links that she mentioned over at nachesnow.com/164. All right, folks. Also remember to go to nachesnow.com/plan, and you will find the article that I mentioned earlier about how to create a personal development plan. If you ever wonder what the difference between an intention is and an affirmation and how it kind of goes with goal planning and creating a plan and system and all of that stuff, this gives you a breakdown with examples so then you can understand like how you could create your own plan. And stay tuned, a Notion template is coming soon. All right, you guys, remember to, if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, please rate me 5 stars. If you're listening on YouTube, please give me a thumbs up, my friends. And wherever you're listening, please subscribe. And also remember, sharing is caring, my friends. So please share this on social media, via email, because really we want to get that message out, not letting fear have all the fun. And seriously, that thing that you've been nervous about, that you've researched to death, that you're just afraid to do it. All right? All right, guys. Until next time, take care. Bye.